I think leaders need courageous curiosity now because of the degree of challenges that we're facing now. I think that our way to find a way to deal with the complexities that we're facing means we have to do a significant amount of unlearning. And that's challenging. That's hard to do, particularly when the unlearning has something to do with something I've come to hold near and dear. So for me, the courageous curiosity is the curiosity about a willingness to really look at those assumptions or those values or those norms that I've really come to depend on, and to examine them, knowing that in that examination they might change, they might evolve, and if that happens, or at least for me when that happens, my sense of a solid ground to stand on gets pretty mushy. So I have a sense of instability, vulnerability. It's not very comfortable for me. So I think you have to have a certain amount of courage or guts to ask those questions or explore that which I've held near and dear. And I think the more that I'm willing to do that with others, the more they're willing to do it with me. The degree to which I'm saying, I want you to do it. So like I'm the leader and I want you to really examine your particular values or norms or perspectives. But I'm not willing to do it. I don't think it happens. I don't think that you get into a generative process with folks. For me, it's a combination of sort of facing the brutal reality of the level of challenges that we're facing now. So like Nancy talked about climate change. I would add to that the financial institutions that we've got and the educational institutions that we've got. And I question the corporate institutions and the way we have, at least in the United States, considered them to be people. I think all of those challenges are combining in such a way that it's overwhelming. I think it's easy for folks to get into fight or flight stance. So facing that brutal reality and then having some reason for engaging it. And for me, it's my grandkids. You know, really getting it that if I don't do whatever I can now to try and find a generative or creative response to the challenges that we're facing, my grandkids are going to take it in the shorts. And I really do not want to be in a situation 20 years down the road and having them look at me and say, Grandpa, why didn't you do anything? When they're suffering in I don't know what sort of ways if we don't find solutions to the things we're facing. So to me, that combination of that's the brutal reality and I actually have a reason to engage it, to try and influence it. So for me, if I think of that moment on the climbing wall that I wrote about in that little paper, it was a combination of having said, this is what I am committed to do as a professional with a group of people who were in this particular workshop. So there was a public declaration of this is my commitment. And then being literally on the wall, and I don't know if I can get to the top. And having someone from that group, the leader of that particular workshop, call that into question. I thought you said you were committed to this, right? I thought you declared to me and to others that you were committed to doing this. So this is what the experience is like if you're in that position where you're actually called to do the work, if you will. And for me, this particular leader, I had a long relationship with because he actually was a student of mine. And I remember saying something very similar to him as a student, and he stood up. He lived into the challenge in a way that I was very proud of. So for me to have him challenge me on his wall, I couldn't say no. So there was some level of commitment that came out of a public declaration and the relationships with the folks in the workshop and with this particular leader that I couldn't say no to. And I discovered that in that relationship, I found the way. It was really ugly. It took a lot of time. I fell 2 or 3 times, and I made it to the top. And I also think that I've had similar kinds of experience with, other folks that have been students who are in a hierarchical relationship. They were like reports. Something about that. It's a mutual relationship. There are moments when I take a stance and I call you out, and I trust and expect that there will be moments when you will do the same with and for me. That kind of mutual process, to me, is really important. I have more of a sense of trust, a sense of commitment, a willingness to lean in. So my belief is that if it works with me, that there's a likelihood that it could work with others. And I think it would be in spots, in moments, in bits and pieces, as opposed to an organizational, transformational intervention. I think that it's something that would need to grow as a result of relationships that get spread or networked over time. And I believe it's our way to survive as a species. Two examples come to mind. One would be startup companies, where there is someone or some small group has an idea, has a dream, and they have the willingness to actually go out and try and manifest that dream. My experience is that in those situations, at least at the beginning, there's a sense that we are the ones that are going to pull this off. It's up to us to do this, and there's a lot of work, there's a lot of commitment, there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of generativity in that process. And if I think of the commercial that's running on TV here in the States right now, but it started in a garage or a small room. So that sort of spirit, if you will, I think would be one example of it. I think that when it moves from startup to it's an IPO or it becomes a more stable company, that tends to get lost somewhere along the way with infrastructure or policies and procedures or those kinds of things. So startup at the beginning would be one example. The other is my experience in the graduate program here. There have been moments where I've had the sense that we, the faculty, collectively hold the students in a particular cohort. Like we all hold them equally. And there's been other moments where, because of the complexity, it's like, oh, so you're going to hold the students in this particular course or in this particular part of the program, and I'm going to hold these students in this other part of the program. So there's less of a sense of we the people, and it's more we have parts that we have to find a way to put together in some kind of coherent whole. So again, there's like moments of it, and then it sort of fades away, and there's moments it fades away. So those are my experiences with the we the people. And I think that's part of why I'm still really curious about what would it look like if it was a sustained attitude or a sustained way of being with others. What might we accomplish together? My understanding of the history of this country is that that notion of we the people came at a time when there was tension around what do we do in terms of our relationship with the British. So it grew out of that tension or that crisis, if you will. So people came together in response to the crisis. And then it's, we, the people, gave the responsibility up to the leaders to, like, you do it because it's too hard for us to do it all the time. And I'm thinking if I build on what Nancy, or what you were actually saying at the very beginning in terms of how folks are dealing with climate change. I think that's an example of another sort of crisis that calls us to be we, the people. How are we collectively going to figure this out? Because we all have a part in the problem and we all have a part in the solution.